This woman survived hell and escaped from her nightmare. A man held this woman captive for 23 years, but when she was finally freed, no one could believe how she managed to survive. Her story is just so insane that it sounds made up, but it's completely true. This story has everything: kidnapping, cannibalism, prison, and escape. When you hear about this story, you will be shocked and speechless. So let's talk about how this woman survived. It all started in the 90s when this woman named Colleen lived in Colorado. She was living her best life and was very happy with her boyfriend. But one day while she was out, she was approached by a stranger. The stranger asked her for directions, but when she told him they were going the wrong way, he pulled out a gun and said he wanted to rob her. This guy had already robbed several other people and thought it would be easy to rob this woman too. But what he didn't know was that Colleen had a crazy survival instinct. She managed to disarm the guy and hit him over the head. She even managed to find his accomplice and beat them up. Even though she could have ended these guys' lives at this point, she didn't. Instead, she tied both of them up and left them there. She then went to the police and reported that she had been mugged. The police believed her and arrested the two suspects. You'd think that would be the end of the story, but it actually just started. Just a couple months after this incident, Colleen was walking home with her dog. She saw someone following her and tried to run away, but it was too late. The same man who she had beaten up a few months earlier had escaped prison, and now he was chasing her. He tackled her to the ground and put a bag over her head. When she realized what was happening, she started screaming for help, but unfortunately, nobody came to save her. This guy dragged her into his car and drove her to an unknown location, and that's when her nightmare began. He took her to his house and kept her locked up in the basement. He chained her to a wall and raped her repeatedly. After some time, he seemed to grow fond of her because he stopped raping her and instead forced her to watch him as he masturbated. Every day he would bring her food and water and tell her that if she was good, he would let her go. But we all know that was just a lie. He kept her trapped in the basement for weeks, but eventually he got bored and decided to move her to a different place. He took her to another one of his houses and continued to keep her locked up. In the basement of this house, he built a wooden box where he would lock her up every day. He would only unlock the box once per day, so he could feed her and use her as a human punching bag. He was super abusive and would hit her, kick her, and rape her. Sometimes he would even hit her with his belt. At night he would let her sleep on a dirty mattress. During the days he would force her to watch porn and engage in sexual acts. One day, he decided to take things a step further. He injected her with a substance and then locked her up in the wooden box for 3 days. She couldn't move and felt like she was gonna die. She barely managed to survive and somehow got herself free from the chains. When the monster came back to the room, he noticed that she had escaped and immediately got angry. He grabbed a knife and forced her to watch him as he cut off one of her breasts. This guy was literally a monster. But it gets worse. He then chopped off her fingers and toes, leaving her with only one finger on each hand. With these body parts, he prepared dinner for himself and ate them. He cannibalized Colleen. And if you think that's disgusting, wait until I tell you what happened next. After he finished eating her body parts, he grabbed a pair of scissors and cut off all of her hair. He then locked her up in the box again, but this time he also threw in a blanket and a pillow. He then left and didn't come back for 2 whole weeks. During those 14 days, Colleen didn't eat or drink anything, but miraculously survived. Finally, he came back and unlocked the box. He was hoping that she would beg for food, but she didn't. He lost his mind when he saw that she had eaten the rats that he had thrown in there. To punish her, he chained her up and locked her inside for another 36 days. It seems unbelievable that a person can survive without food and water for more than a month. But Colleen is a strong woman and managed to pull through. Finally, he opened the box again and she begged him for water. He gave her some water and that's when she had an idea. When he wasn't paying attention, she splashed some water on his face. He screamed in anger, and that's when she knew she had a chance. She kicked him in the groin and he collapsed in pain. She managed to get some keys from his pockets and ran outside. She knocked on a random house and begged them to call the police. She was then taken to the hospital where she received treatment for her injuries. But since the police didn't catch the guy, she had to testify against him in court. She identified him as the monster who had tormented her for years. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. He's currently serving his sentence at the Dodge Correctional Institution. And to this day, Colleen still suffers from nightmares and PTSD. She had to relearn basic tasks, such as walking and talking because she had used these skills in so long. She was only 27 years old when this happened, but she had spent 23 years in captivity. So now you're probably wondering, why did this guy kidnap her in the first place? Well, his name is Gary, and he had developed an obsession with Colleen after the first time he saw her. He had previously been married, but his wife had left him for another man. So when he saw Colleen, he became infatuated with her and wanted her all to himself. That's why he kidnapped her and kept her as his property. He had several other houses where he kept women captive, but Colleen was his main obsession. He was attracted to her because she was a brunette, and that reminded him of his ex. He chose to keep her alive for all those years because he wanted to torture her and make her suffer. He got a lot of pleasure from controlling and dominating her. How did Colleen survive for so long? Well, the biggest reason is that she had a strong will to live. She never gave up hope and always believed that one day she would be free. Another reason is that she was in great physical condition. She was a runner and had a lot of stamina. This helped her to survive the torture and abuse that Gary inflicted on her. Lastly, she was very intelligent. She used her intelligence to outsmart Gary and eventually escape. She was able to learn the routines of the house and predict when Gary would leave her alone. This gave her time to plan her escape. She also used her intelligence to manipulate Gary and get him to trust her. This made it easier for her to escape when the time was right. Cannibalism is a disturbing practice that involves the consumption of human flesh. This behavior is rare and is typically associated with extreme circumstances such as survival situations or ritualistic practices. There are documented cases of cannibalism throughout history and across cultures, but it remains a relatively uncommon occurrence. Cannibalism can occur in both isolated and widespread forms. Isolated cannibalism refers to instances where individuals or small groups engage in the practice, often due to specific circumstances such as survival or cultural beliefs. Widespread cannibalism, on the other hand, occurs when the practice is more prevalent within a larger population or society. One factor that can contribute to cannibalism is resource scarcity. In situations where food is scarce, some individuals may turn to consuming human flesh as a means of survival. For example, during the siege of Leningrad during World War II, some residents resorted to cannibalism due to severe starvation and lack of access to food supplies. Another factor that can contribute to cannibalism is cultural beliefs and practices. In certain indigenous cultures, the consumption of human flesh is an integral part of their rituals or traditions. For instance, the Fore people of Papua New Guinea have a historical practice of ritualistic cannibalism during initiation ceremonies. In addition to these factors, psychological and sociological factors can also play a role in cannibalism. Individuals with certain mental disorders, or those influenced by extreme ideologies, may engage in cannibalistic behavior. For example, there have been cases of serial killers who not only murder their victims, but also consume their flesh. Overall, while cannibalism is a disturbing and uncommon practice, it is important to understand the various factors that can contribute to this behavior. Whether driven by desperation, cultural beliefs, or other influences, the reasons behind cannibalism are complex and multifaceted. Now, if you want to see another short, then click the shorts button or click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.